Welcome back to another edition of the Gabagools Podcast, episode 8. With me today is the co-host, the Cuzzo, as always. Dan, how we doing today?
Beautiful, beautiful. I wish we had some sunlight like yesterday, but this is what you get with Chicago weather. So,
Yeah, no
how you
kidding.
doing?
I'm doing well, man. The weather has been nothing but rain, as you know, because you have a dog as well. Having to deal with muddy paws. I mean, the nice thing is I have to take my dogs out on a leash, so like I can kind of control where they're walking. There is a ton of mud in my yard just in general that I have to throw some like seed down just to clear it. I mean, HOA shouldn't do that, but that's a different story. But other than that, we're doing well here. How about we talk some sports? The I think we have to touch on just the injuries in baseball right now.
Yeah, I mean they're dropping like flies. It seems like, and most of them are big time starting pitchers in the league. They're not just your run of the mill guys who you add to your rotation. So, just off the top, obviously Garrett Cole. I mean he's the one. He started the year on the injury list. I mean we're hoping it's only a month or two, but. He went down. He's a big one. Shane Bieber just went down. He was pitching. He was looking like the Bieber of a couple years ago. So that's unfortunate for him in
Yeah,
Cleveland. McClanahan, we know he's already out. Another one who's been out the whole year. Otani. Verlander had his issue creep
yeah,
up, I think, in spring training. He's still out for a while. Same thing with Scherzer. He was out. He's starting the year out. Kershaw. Brandon Woodruff had,
yeah.
I think, a shoulder issue or whatever that crept up this last year. But yeah, how about all the injuries? We're not even 2 full weeks into the season, and you've got all these number ones who are out.
Yeah, and you didn't even mention a couple of them either. Jacob Degrom, he that was last season. You did mention Shane O'Mac, or Shane McClanahan for people who don't know his nickname. But like Yuri Perez, also a really young 20-year-old pitcher for the Marlins. He's out, and another guy in the Marlins last year who got Tommy John is Sandy Alcantara. And that's basically the topic of it is like all these Tommy John or shoulder issues happening now. Is it the cold weather? Is it that the fact that I don't want to call them kids because some of them are actually older than I am, but they've been pitching their entire lives. Like we're talking about people who have been pitching, and a lot of bullets in those chambers getting thrown. Where little league, okay, you're that stud player who could throw faster than everybody else. Okay, you're going out there I don't know what the limit is now. Um, every couple days, like 3 to 4 or 5 days, you're going out there and you're pitching probably a full game because you're striking everybody out. And then you go into high school. If you're not playing travel ball, you pitch a lot in high school. That's when you're getting noticed. If you're a top prospect, you might skip right to the minor leagues. A lot of them aren't anymore, where you're going right to the college, and then you're pitching multiple times in a week in college too, just to even get noticed. So that's a lot of strain. Even that's not even including your minor league track record. If you start off in high A and you have to work your way up, a lot of these guys just don't have the arm strength, and these guys are all throwing 100 miles per hour. They're all having nasty spin rates. There's no spider tack anymore. So I think that might be a huge issue. We could touch on too if we want, and whether it's this episode or another one, that could just be a huge thing. But they are just dropping like flies, like you said.
Yeah, one we forgot to mention too, Spencer Strider, the big one who just went
That's
down
the
too.
biggest one. Yeah, and that one. Luckily, I don't have any shares of him in fantasy. With being selfish for a moment, I did lose Bieber though.
Yeah, Bieber hurts too because he's still. I mean, he's still not that old. I mean, he was. I
He's
think he had like
28.
they said he had like 20 Ks in 12 innings. I mean, he's
He's
been
been incredible.
he's been looking like that guy that they had a couple years ago with him and the Klubat back when they had him a few years back. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate you see all these big names. Obviously, you don't want to see anybody get hurt, but then they're all some of the biggest of the big names that are getting hurt. And then we had the MLBPA make that statement. I don't know if it was last night or this morning about some of the new rule changes and how they think that the pitch clock and having to speed guys up and some of those new rules are potentially a result of all these injuries. And I guess only time will tell. They just kind of came out last night, I think, and made that statement. And MLB kind of came back and said, well, we don't have any evidence to support that right now.
Yep.
They're doing their own studies. It's kind of a work in progress right now, but um, kind of crazy with all these big name guys. They're all either starting the year hurt. We've all, not even 2 weeks into the season, we've got guys who are getting hurt here, and I think a lot of people are trying to figure out. I mean, look, you have guys get hurt all the time. Sometimes you have
Yep.
starts to years where they're not as bad, but this year in particular, man, it's just like one day after the other. I mean, and it's all the biggest of the names. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, another name too that just came up to my mind is Kevin Gosman. He left his start after like 1 1/3 innings yesterday. He his velocity dropped like dramatically. I don't think he hit over 85. I think after the game started, it started going up, but I don't know if his is a shoulder or if it's going to be another Tommy John issue. Time will tell. But it's just terrible, what's going on with baseball, because all these top pitchers, we're going to be having, you know, a lot of crappy pitching going. And, it basically who's going to win the World Series. I'll tell you right now, it's going to be whoever can stay healthiest or whoever has the bats, so you're talking Dodgers, you're talking Braves, a lot of people who either have people coming off of Tommy John. Dustin May from them just had it. Walker Buehler still isn't back. And that was 2 years ago.
Yeah,
So, the recovery time, I mean, the Sox were like known for having Tommy John, which Lucas Giolito needed Tommy John this year
it's
too.
just going to bring him up too.
Too
Yeah,
many names. Like they just keep coming. Like you go through each like region, and you're just going through it. Speaking of just baseball in general, can we take 1 minute and talk about the minor league baseball? So it hasn't been going on like this year, like just started. It hasn't been going on that much. So the Norfolk, let me see, what is their Norfolk Tide? They are the affiliate, if you know it, for Baltimore. Did you see how many runs they put up on Charlotte the other day?
no, I don't think I did.
They put up like 23 runs at least. And Hunter Kerstad from Baltimore, so he's one of their top prospects, as you know,
Hmm.
10 RBIs, 5 hits, 2 home runs, one was a grand slam. And he's not even their best player in that farm system. Connor Norby. Okay, he's pretty good. Huge game. Huge week, actually. Jackson Holiday. Colby Mayo. Like the list goes on and on. Why I'm bringing this up is how good do you think the Orioles are going to be, not only this year, but for like the next 5 that these guys are all under control? You got Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Santander is no one to mess with. Jordan Westberg. Just the list goes on and on about how good this Baltimore team is. A lot of them are going to have trouble finding spots in the lineup, that's for sure. They're going to probably have to trade for some outfield help. That's not talking bad about Cedric Mullins or Santander, but they just are so loaded at position players. It reminds me almost of like the 2016 Cubs would be the comparable.
It is similar. I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, no, it is crazy. The big one on that list is obviously Holiday. I mean, I think most people expected him to break the club this year, and obviously he gets sent down to AAA. And what is he doing? He's just tearing it up like he was. So, you know, that team's an embarrassment of riches right now. And that was what really surprised me with those projections to begin the year was they had the Yankees taken first. They had Baltimore in either second or third in that division, and they didn't even have Baltimore winning 90 games. That to me was I mean, that's a different, talk or whatever. But I just, with how good Baltimore is and how young they are, just looking forward, they won like 100 games last year. I don't know how you don't pick them to win that division with all that talent they have.
Yeah, no doubt. I think they're only going to get better from here too. But yeah, that was just my little minor league minute of the week. You know, we'll stay on the baseball topic. I really don't have much to talk about my Southside Sox here, except for the fact that Luis Roberts out again for months with a grade 2 flexor strain.
Wait, Robert
So
is? I thought Eloy was out.
yeah, I was going to touch on him next. Yeah, Robert
Elroy.
got hurt. I think Friday night. Friday night he was
Oh
rounding
man.
first, and he has a grade 2 flexor strain in his hip again. This time it's not torn, but that's still, if you know anything about like the
Hips aren't good.
the grades is basically that's a small. I mean, I don't want to say tear, but that's still a significant injury where he's going to be out a while. So the Sox are going to be even more horrific than they already are. They've scored 13 runs in 8 games. There's teams that scored 13 runs in 1 inning. Arizona, we talked about them last week, I think. You know, touching on that, and then you got Eloy, who is hurt again. There was somebody took a screenshot of it. I don't know if it was the Sox broadcast or not, but they went through every single injury since 2019 that Eloy has had. We're in the 20s now of different times that he's gotten hurt. It's disgusting. I've been done with them since last season. I've pretty much been done with that whole team. I want to just get rid of all of them as soon as we can. I mean, Robert, he stayed healthy last year and almost won an MVP. Like, he was in the top 5. He wasn't going to win because Otani, you have enough players ahead of him, but you can't discount how good of a player he is. But the team is just horrific. It's just an embarrassment to even be in this type of situation. And like I said, there's no sense of direction with this team. They just bring in a ton of players and former personnel from the Kansas City Royals, and that's all they've done.
I didn't think you guys would be the worst team in the league this year, but with Robert going out, you guys have a legitimate chance to get that number 1 overall pick, and that's not a bad thing.
Well, here's the problem with that is that's not even a for sure thing because it's a lottery now. Because they changed the format a couple of years ago. Because even last year we were even worse. I mean, we were bad. We got number 5. Cleveland, who was actually decent last year, ended up with the number 1 overall pick, and they're going to get that cat out of Georgia. I can't think of his name, but the guy's tearing the cover off the ball. So we'll see what that ends up being. But of course, a division rival. Just like the weather in Chicago, it's a very grim outlook for the Sox. But it wasn't, by no means am I surprised. I'm actually okay with it because maybe Jerry will sell the team because he realizes that he can't do this anymore.
And it's unfortunate because some of the guys that you've either traded for or you've drafted haven't really hit that well. I mean, I think the biggest one that for me that comes to mind is Moncada. That was in the Chris Sale trade. He was supposed to be very, very good, versatile guy, switch hitter, has speed, has power. I mean, more than I do. He was supposed to be a great player, and obviously, the only thing great about him is probably all the chains he wears. So, I mean, he hasn't done much, unfortunately.
You forgot about his music video before I'll let you finish on him, but you forgot about his music video that he did.
Well, I mean, I'll have to watch that. That might actually be the best thing he's done since he's become a White Sox. But
Decent song.
yeah, I'm sure it is. Um, Andrew Vaughn, I know he's still very young. I mean, he's supposed to be this great hitter. Maybe he's still very young, so maybe he'll kind of figure something else out. But um, you know, Moncada, you have him. Robert obviously is your big guy. You got rid of some of the guys in the clubhouse from last year. I mean, from what I heard from a couple games already, the vibes or whatever is better in the clubhouse than on the field. Maybe that is true. I still don't think you guys are going to be great, but you knew that coming in. You
Yeah.
you do have a couple bright spots though. You have some solid pieces you got in the
Yeah.
trade you just made for Cease. Obviously, you have Robert for the next couple of years. And let's face it, if Crochet can stay healthy, I know he's on a terrible team, but man, you're talking about a guy who, if he could just rack up enough wins, you're talking about a legitimate Cy Young candidate year in and year out if he stays healthy. That's how good he is. He's filthy. So you've got some solid pieces that now I can count them on one hand. So you don't have a ton, right? But some of those guys are very, very good with Robert, with Crochet, and potentially some of these other kids you have in your farm system that you've rebuilt. So, you knew going into this year was going to be tough. Getting rid of TA is probably going to help you guys with the tough year he had last year. Um, Hopefully, some of the other guys do better, but yeah, I mean, you knew coming into this year was going to be a long year. I mean, you just
Oh yeah, no, I had no outlook. I almost didn't even want to talk about them this entire time that we do a podcast, but it would be remiss for me not to.
How
But
long is Robert supposed to be out with this hip issue? Did you say a month or two?
I mean, they said they didn't give a timeline yet, but Bob Nightingale said he could be out months, which is to be
Oh,
expected because when you do something with your hip like that, he had a grade 3 and he was out for almost 80 games. I think in 21.
mm.
I think it was 21. So that's a problem. That being said, you are right. There are some bright spots. One of them being Garrett Crochet. And did you at least catch the box score when he took down the Braves?
No, so that was his second start, right?
Yeah, second start. So first one was against Detroit. We could say what we want about the quality of a team,
They look
but
good though this year to start.
they looked very well. The problem is who have they played? Because we could touch about that with Boston as well. But Garrett Crochet went 7 innings, struck out 8, only gave up 1 home run, and he gave up 3 hits against the toughest team in baseball. I would argue was the Atlanta Braves, 1 through 9. People
Uh,
could say the Dodgers and they're top of their lineup, but I'm still going to pick the Braves, just because of top to bottom. Their only flaw would be shortstop, which isn't even that's not a flaw. They're like so deep just across the board, but
yeah,
um,
Michael Harris hitting eighth or ninth. I mean, that
yeah,
guy on any other lineup is either middle or top of the lineup. I mean, it's
yeah,
unbelievable how deep they are.
yeah, exactly. And I think they still have people in the farm system that we don't even know about yet. But that being said, we'll go back to the White Sox. Yeah, there are a few bright spots. I mean, Moncada hasn't been really good since he came up in 2016 and 2017. Ongoing issues where he's been hurt. Vaughn, can we blame him getting called up, you know, during the COVID cancellation of the minor leagues? So he never had time in the minors. He got rushed up. Can we blame it on that? Possibly. I don't like making excuses for major league talent. That being said, I think we do need to, I think I'm pretty fed up with him too. If you told me he was traded or gone or released, whatever, him, Aloy, Moncada, if he whatever happens, I think he's done after this year at least, or it's next year, one of the two. But yeah, at least you hit a little bit of a bright, sunny day on Crochet on that one, and some of the young pitching too. Jordan Leisure's looked pretty good too, so another name to watch. But let's talk about some better baseball on the north side of the town with the
Yeah,
Cubs.
well, as of this before this last game, I think they had where was an odd stat. And I know it's early, but the Cubs I think had the highest walk rate in the majors, which I thought was interesting. And we were swinging at some of the. We were like I think we had like a really low percentage or one of the lowest percentages of swinging at stuff outside the zone, which if you've been watching the Cubs, especially when we had Chris Bryant and Rizzo and Javi and all those guys, man, I mean, there was a lot of swinging at stuff that you and I wouldn't swing at, and we're not major leaguers.
Right.
So um, there's been some interesting bright spots. I don't know if you've looked at the standings, but the NL Central is very interesting. I don't think any team's under 500, and I think every team has
Right.
at least 5 wins.
Yep.
That was a division that, if you would have asked before the year, you probably would have said, 85 to 90 games wins that division, maybe 92, depending on who gets hot at the right time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's going to change, but it's been a very hot start for every team in that division to start. The one thing that hurts us, obviously, is our ace, if you want to call him that, still going down with the hammy. I think I heard that he was just throwing the other day, so hopefully if that's true, he's not going to be out as long as they were saying, at least a month or so. We'll see, but it looked like he picked up right where he left off from last year. So
Yeah.
good to see there. Imanaga is supposed to pitch today. If it
If the
if it
weather.
weren't for yeah, if the weather permits. I feel like if it wasn't for Houston and Texas playing each other tonight, and Houston having the guy coming off the no hitter pitching tonight, I feel like the Cubs and the Dodgers could have been the game of the week with Imanaga versus Otani. We just
Yeah.
saw Yamamoto yesterday. He looked pretty good. I don't want to brag, but we definitely should have won that game. We had him on the ropes, I think, the first couple innings of that game and got
Yeah.
nothing.
I
But
admittedly bet the over on the run line for either team combined to score 1 run in the first, and none of them did. Both had the bases loaded,
yeah,
so both the
should have hit.
Dodgers and Cubs can go to hell
Yeah,
because they
yeah.
scored. I would have made a very small chump of change here, but um, yeah, they're they're playing good baseball. So I wanted to like laugh though because you guys beat up on a really, really bad
Oh, I
Rockies.
mean, Colorado is going to be. I mean, when I said you guys are going to be could be in the running for the worst team, I
Yeah,
didn't mention Colorado and how bad. Wow. I mean, you know what? It was a little wet and slick that one day
it
when
was
Morel
cold.
hit that inside the park homer, but the ball goes right under Nolan Jones's glove. Not. I mean, you want to talk about a guy who wanted to get out of Wrigley? Nolan Jones had a terrible, terrible series.
He did.
Um,
He really.
Chris,
He's been
I don't think
horrible.
I
Chris
don't
Bryant
think
was
Bryant
too.
had a yeah, he didn't do very well. I don't think he did much better, if any better. But yeah, that's going to be a team that wins 50, 55 games this year. I mean, they are sorry, Colorado fans, you guys are bad.
Yeah, they. You know what's funny is you bring up like bad teams. So you got the A's who have been horrific too.
Oof, man, I can
They haven't.
smell the A's from here.
Yeah, terrible. You have them. You have the Sox. The Marlins. I don't think have won a game yet. I think they're still 0-4. The Mets have
I,
been horrible,
I
which is
think
funny
that
because you go to.
surprises. Go ahead.
God,
Well, I think that surprises some people with Miami. I mean, I didn't think Miami was going to be that great, but I mean, they still haven't won a game. I mean, come on now.
who was it? There's a team that's already asking about Luis Arias and uh, Jesus Lazardo already, and it was funny because I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about how we're not even a week into the season and they're already talking people are talking trades, and it's like you can't do that after a week because okay, the Pirates and the Tigers, for instance, Tigers, they have AJ Hinch as a manager, so I'll give them that, but the Pirates aren't going to keep in first place the entire year. If I'm wrong, I'll crack an egg on my own head here live on the podcast. They're not winning the division, but right now they're leading. That's the fun thing about baseball is anything can changes. You could win 7 in a row, you could lose 7 in a row. That's going to happen. um, that being said, though, like it, I mean, because Boston too. I don't think Boston's a very good team, but somehow they're winning a lot of ball games too. But they played the A's first 4 games of the season. You should win those. Um, yeah, the Rockies though are so bad, and I just had to laugh because if I don't know how much of talk radio you listen to, but you would think they were won the World Series against the Rockies, and it's not even really the fans. The fans are fine. They're not, there's nothing right now. It was just funny listening to them like, oh, is this team going to win the world? It's like, okay, do it against the Dodgers. And here's my point with it. They're playing very good baseball against the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, sweeping Colorado isn't much to there's not much to be said for that. But you know what? What I'll say is this: those are games you're supposed to win,
Yep.
whether you're a
Should.
good Cubs team or you're even a middle of the road team. Colorado is going to be a bottom dweller and probably a bottom five, maybe even a bottom three team this year. So you know what? I'm glad we took care of business there. The thing that excites me is the offense looks pretty good. And the last couple of years, ever since we won, the offense has struggled and it's been more reliant on the pitching. And that to me could be the weakness, the weak spot of our team. And the way Jed has constructed this is, we just called up Ben Brown. He didn't look great his first outing. His second outing, he looked really good. Could have just been nerves in that first outing, but Cade Horton is supposed to be our number one prospect. So this Ben Brown kid, I think he's the number two. You can nitpick one and two all you want, but
Yeah.
Brown looked really solid. If Horton can come up this year and look good, it's unfortunate we signed Craig Counsell to all this money, and I feel like yesterday is when he may have made maybe his first mistake, and maybe he didn't want Wicks to throw more than 100 pitches in that game. He both of them, him and Yamamoto, threw like 30 in the first, so they were doomed to go deep from the start. But
Yeah.
Wicks, I think, got an out or two in the fifth, and then he got pulled for Jose Cuas. And ever since we acquired Jose Cuas, he's been a pile of shit. I'll spell for our younger viewers
Younger
who are
audience.
watching. But he's had some good outings. He's got that interesting low 3/4 kind of delivery. He's got good stuff, but the guy can't locate half the time. And when you can't locate, you're not very good in the majors. And he ended up giving up a couple runs in that inning, and that ended up being the game because it was well pitched on both sides from a guy who's making 300 million in Yamamoto and this guy Jordan Wicks, who we just called up last year to pitch,
Yeah.
looked good.
Correct.
And all I'm going to say about Wicks is the guy's a bulldog. He is a
Yeah.
gamer.
I
I
like him.
love watching him pitch. I mean,
Yeah,
he's a guy who knows how to pitch. He doesn't have the 98 like Yamamoto does, so he actually knows, hey, sequencing. I've got to locate, and he's fun to watch. I didn't. I was working yesterday, so I was able to catch. I think from the third or fourth inning on, I was able to watch him, and maybe he didn't have his best stuff, but after the first inning or two, he settled in a little bit. Had the
yeah.
higher pitch count, wasn't going to go seven, but he battled, and I would have loved to see Council at least try to let him get through five or something.
Yeah, and I think that's just the learning curve with the new team. You got to figure out what you got in your bullpen. You got to figure out what you have in your rotation, and then you can manage it from there. So we'll see. What still plenty of time to iron it out, but you know, I think even Alize, he got the save. Or I think they call did they give him the save or did they give him the win on Friday?
He's Alzolay. I think he might have a save. He blew one on
Yeah, he
opening
blew in
night.
Texas. Yeah, and that was I was going to say that might have been his mistake when he brought him in against I think it was a righty because he's a lefty, isn't he? Left.
Al,
Yeah,
Al,
Alize.
no, Alzolay's a righty.
Okay, so then he brought him in against the lefty or whatnot in Texas, and they blew that game. But that being said, I think it's just a transition, before people start going after Council's head, which I've seen on Twitter already. People it's honestly very funny watching the combination. So you got the Sox fans who are just depressed as it is. You got the Cubs fans who just want everybody's head on a pike, and it's very similar to the Bears. You know, the play calling, coaching, whatever. It's just day in and day out when you watch it. It's like, oh, this person should have ran it here. You should. Well, there's a difference. These people are getting paid that. You're sitting on Twitter bitching about it, and you probably played football when you were in the '80s. When you probably have a couple concussions, and that's why you think you know everything. But that being said, I'll digress.
You know what though? It's been a solid start. It's still very early. Give this another couple of weeks. Give me a month and a half, 2 months in, and
You
I'll
can
tell you
judge
what I
this.
think.
Yeah, I mean, if you
But
take 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers, that's huge.
yeah, assuming we get this game in, I'm actually excited to watch this game. I didn't get to see much of Imanaga's first start. I just know he pitched really well, so I'm excited to see him pitch. I know he gets to go against Otani. I'm sure a lot of people are interested in that matchup a couple times today. And I mean, especially with the Dodgers lineup, I mean, they have one of the most feared lineups that we've got in the game. Obviously, it's deep, but I don't think there's a better three hitters in a row, whether it be 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, with Mookie, Otani, and Freddie. I don't know if there's a better 1, 2, 3 that's ever been assembled. I mean,
Three MVPs. You're
it's
talking almost like
unbelievable.
you're almost talking the Yankees. Ruth and all those guys at that point. Luth, Gehrig too.
You'd have to probably go all the way back to them. And you know what? I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't alive to see those guys.
Oh,
So, I mean, this is obviously the closest thing we've had to that. But these guys, I mean, I hate to talk bad of the dead here, and I'm not, but these guys could be better than that. It is,
100%.
especially with the
There's a
start
big difference
Mookie's
too.
had. I mean, Mookie's freaking unbelievable. Otani's the
Nice.
best player we've got in the game. And then you've got a guy like Freddie who it seems like is aging like a fine wine. The guy's getting better as he's gone to the Dodgers.
I was going to say he's like a whiskey almost.
Could be. I mean, he could be a solid bourbon. I mean, it
Yeah,
could be a little scotch. I mean, the guys on. I mean, for me, I'd say tequila because that's my choice of
yeah,
drink.
that
But
is your choice.
hey, to each their own. You can have what you want.
Absolutely.
But
Whatever your top creme de la creme, top bottle service, or top shelf bottle, that's what Freddie Freeman is. Good call on that one. He's always good for a 30, almost 100 season too. That being said, let's transition to a quick football moment. In the coming weeks, we do have the NFL draft. Excited about that. But that being said, our friend here from the Buffalo Bills, Stefon Diggs, traded to Houston for a 25 second, and this that wasn't the Bills wanted to get rid of Stefon Diggs so badly. I I haven't seen
clearly,
any I haven't seen any leaks of what it's been, but they actually had to give up like 2 other picks. They had to give up a fourth or a fifth in this year's draft and a sixth in next year's draft as well, just to move on from him.
So do we think he's bad in the locker room? I mean, because we've seen him get a little tooty, especially in the playoffs the last couple of years at Allen and some other things like that. So is he an attitude guy or
That's what my interpretation of it has been, is that he's been kind of one of those guys that he wants to win so badly and he wants the ball. And that's a problem where I think that if he's not getting the ball, he's not happy about it. People want to throw that same name with AJ Brown being the toxic guy that he really isn't. Stefon Diggs, yeah, I think it's a good call that he is toxic, but we can't talk about the enough good. Like, he's still an elite wide receiver.
yeah?
Let he's 31 years old now, but he still puts up 1,000-yard season almost every year. So what does this mean for Houston? This means Houston probably has 3 number one wide receivers. I'm not a big fan of Nico Collins. He's very good, but I also think volume made him and Tank Dell what they are today. I think they're really great athletes, but they needed that Stefon Diggs guy to be a deeper team and continue to give them options. Uh, what this means for the dynasty outlook for those 3 wide receivers, I think they're still outside the top 10. I don't move them up a whole lot. I mean, you still could put Diggs in the top 15. I think Collins was like going around 12th. I think you have to drop him to around like your 18 to 20. And then Tank Dell, if he's healthy, you know, still top 20, I guess you could put him in that conversation. But what does that mean for CJ Stroud, the quarterback? Top 3. Top 3 option.
Has to be with that offense over there. I mean, that was the first thing that came to my mind was even if Diggs is a prima donna and he's a diva or whatever you want to call him, like you said, he's still an elite receiver. You add him over there with Nico Collins and Dell, and I think they just brought Schultz back too, right? I mean,
Yep, for 3 more years. So that team's going to be deadly. I mean, they did basically restructure Diggs's contract where he's going to be making more money this year. They had the money to spend, and they added to the defense. But that being said, they can easily. I think he's done after this year. So if it doesn't work out, see you later. And then hopefully
sure.
Nico Collins, you re-sign him. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to win that division easily now, unless somebody gets hurt. They brought in Joe Mixon too. We didn't touch on that.
So really quick, you said they're going to win that division.
Yes.
Who's in that division? Isn't that Cincinnati and who's
No.
in
So
Houston's division? Is
Houston's
that
division is the South. So they have the Jags,
Jacksonville? Yeah,
the Colts, and then Titans. Titans are going to be hot garbage. I mean,
yeah,
no, we can't say they're going to be hot garbage. They actually did revamp a lot. They brought in Kelvin Ridley. It's going to be on Will Levis.
yeah.
We'll see. Um,
Colts.
the Colts, that base that's on AR. So Anthony Richardson, we need him
We'll
to
see.
really step up. And then Jaguars. It's going to be a close division. We'll say that, but the Texans would be your odds. If you had to pick a team right now to make the playoffs, all the money's on them.
I I I absolutely agree with you, but I'll say this: if those other guys stay healthy on those other teams, you could have a very interesting division because Jacksonville, with Doug Peterson over there now, with Lawrence and ETN doing their things, that's a good team. Um, AR looked good before he got hurt, so we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, the Colts have some other pieces. The Colts surprised a lot of people by winning 8 or 9 games this year. So
Yeah.
if Richardson can stay healthy, you have to maybe throw an extra couple wins in there. Maybe we'll see how the season shakes out. And then, who was the other one? The Saints?
No, no, no.
No, it was
So it was Jags, Titans, and Colts, and then Texans, obviously.
and then yeah, Houston. I mean, if I was CJ Stroud waking up to that text, that had to be a good feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, he's already been throwing with them. I saw this morning that they actually. Do you know who Sketch is? The streamer from Twitch.
I'm not big on
He's
Twitch.
What's Up Brother. Have you seen that going around?
What's up, brother? You'd have to send me the clip.
I'll
Maybe
send
I've
you the
seen it,
clip
but
after it, so it's better for radio. But yeah, I guess they got together with Sketch, the Twitch, and they were like throwing balls and whatnot. So, and Diggs was already there. So say what you want. He's already working with the team. I hope for him he can at least have a chance to win. That wasn't going to happen in Buffalo, but I mean, we're talking that the Jets might actually walk away with this division. It might not happen, but They added. They added so much that division. We'll touch on that, probably next week. We'll talk on more football. But watch my Jets now, man.
Yeah, that'll
They
be an
basically
interesting pod.
it's
Yeah.
going to be. So stay tuned for that one. But let's talk about what the championship at hand today. Iowa versus South Carolina in women's basketball. We had Iowa take down UConn on Friday. Did you catch any of that game?
I am ashamed to say I really did not catch most of that game. I actually, I'm an idiot, is what it is at half the time. But I did catch some highlights. I saw some things. I mean, what a game! I mean, 2 point game with Clark against that Page girl on UConn.
Yeah, Paige Beckers.
I'll
So
throw it to you.
yeah, let me cook here. Okay, so I watched that game pretty heavily, and I was like invested in it. UConn should have won that game. They had every opportunity to take out Iowa, and they didn't. They actually neutralized Caitlin Clark. They had face guarded her pretty much the entire game with Nika Mole, basically face guarded her the entire game. She, I think, she was 0 for 3 points, for 3 pointers in the first half. That's the first time in I don't know how long that's happened to Caitlin Clark. Uh, that being said, it all came down to the last 3 seconds of the game when UConn was adding the pressure on to score, and they came off a screen, offensive foul because the center who was setting the screen moved her whole body. Some will say you should call that the whole game because it happens the entire game. You let the girls play at that point. Yeah, at least get them a shot up to see if they would have won. They didn't. That being said, Iowa won. Uh, this is going to be a legacy game for both sides. You got South Carolina and you got Iowa. For Caitlin Clark, her legacy is on the line because she needs to win a title. To be the GOAT, you have to win it. If you want to be compared to Deanna Taurasi, Brianna Stewart, all those other UConn icons, you need to win a championship. It doesn't matter how good you are, you need to win. That being said, it's going to be very tough. Right now, at the odds for the spread, it's plus 6.5 for Iowa against South Carolina, who's 37-0. They're chasing their third national championship in 7 tournaments. They won one in 2017 and 2022. You could argue that this would be a modern day dynasty if they do win this year, just because they are undefeated. There's been 10 because they'd be the 10th undefeated champion in Division One women's history. Only 4 of the programs have ever won. That being said, it was UConn, which if you remember those dynasty teams, Texas, Tennessee, and Baylor.
Well, I'll say this. I know in that game against UConn, I think Caitlin had, I think I saw she had 5 points in the first half, but then she finished with, I think, 21. So she got going a little bit more in the second half.
Yep.
Um, that being said, obviously that's the recipe for South Carolina. Everybody knows if you can slow her down, if she doesn't put up 30 or 40, you probably have a pretty good chance to win. If she does put up 30 or 40 or more, we're looking at a very interesting game. And it's not all the scoring with her, too. She's dropping pretty much double-digit assists, it seems like, almost every game, too. I mean,
Yeah.
she's
That's how
not,
they won. That's how they won the game, honestly, was she was like a facilitator the whole time because she couldn't do anything. She was drawing the double teams pretty much anytime they were she had somebody in her face the entire game. In the second half, when they set a couple screens where she got open and then she started making the 3 pointers. But it was tough. I mean, and the difference is you kind of only played with six players the entire game, so not a deep rotation. South Carolina's deep, so
yeah.
they had players last season who they had 5 players going the WNBA draft or are just gone off the team. So it's an even more revamped roster. They have even better guard play. with the transfers that they got with, I'm not even going to try their names. They got better guards. They've had growth from the players from last season that were on the bench riding it. So they have like a 9-player rotation that just comes in waves where that's going to be tough for a team like Iowa. Iowa will have to play their game, make their 3-pointers, and kind of basically keep it close and hope for the best.
Yeah, I saw this, I think, either yesterday or this morning that this game's being heralded as the dominant team versus the dominant player. And
Yeah.
you know what? South Carolina for sure, definitely the better team. It's definitely for me. It's all the shine's getting on going on Caitlin Clark as it should be, but it's going to be about her supporting cast too. There's other good players on that team.
Yeah.
Obviously, South Carolina's got the overall better team. I don't think anyone's disputing that. But I mean, Stolke, she is a big player for Iowa, and I think she's one of the big girls on that team. She's going up against Cardoso, so that's probably going to be the matchup of the night.
Yeah,
Um,
it will be. Yeah, because she scored 23 on against UConn, and that honestly kept them in it. And then you can't talk enough about Gabby Marshall and I think it's Gabby Marshall, and then Katie. I can't think of her name at the moment, but yeah, you have enough of those players that have to step up and play. It just all can't be on Caitlin. But yeah, you hit it right on the head.
Caitlin, though, for her though, I mean, she's. I'll say this: she can't have a 21 point game and expect them to win tonight. I would
No,
assume that
she
for
needs to be
Iowa to
perfect.
win, it's got to be 30, 35, 40. It's got to be one of those big games. And frankly, I think every game in the tournament, and pretty much almost every game this regular season for her, she had a big game. One of her weaker games was probably just recently against UConn. So, you know what? They had a good game plan. I'm sure South Carolina is going to take a lot of that game plan into tonight. But you know what? If you're Caitlin, you should know what's coming.
Oh yeah,
And you know what? I find it hard to believe she was in this position last year. I know that the brain is going to say South Carolina is the better team. They're and all that, but I'm telling you right now, it's the heart that sometimes gets
yeah.
you. You know what I mean? And she was in this position last year. Honestly, it was a tough game. I think LSU blew them out by like 30 or something. I don't think it ended up being that close, but
Yeah,
she's
they
hungry.
put up 100 on Iowa last year, but we'll see.
She's hungry.
Yeah, I mean, if she's like I said, if she starts off hot better than she did against UConn, then
We're in
we'll,
for a treat.
we are in for a treat regardless. So hopefully it's a close game. Let's hope Iowa wins it so we can cement, Caitlin Clark as the GOAT. At least in that conversation. So fingers crossed on that. But let's flip over to the men's side of the bracket here. UConn versus Purdue is for our national championship on Monday. Another unstoppable force versus an immovable object.
All right. First of all, that was great. That's the title of this episode right there. Second of all, I meant to say this. We have this year in college basketball, men's and women's, we have the two best teams pretty much on both sides that are meeting. Um, South Carolina has been the best team for the women's side all year, obviously undefeated. And you get if you want to say there was another team or two, maybe that was better than Iowa. I mean, you can maybe make that argument, but I mean, I would have to say, Caitlin Clark with how good she's been. Those two to me, that is so huge for the sport. And then on the men's side, you've got Zach Edey. I don't know what his nickname is. You could call him the Mountain or whatever you want. And then you've got my favorite guy this year in basketball, other than Burns on NC State. You've got Kling Kong on UConn. Okay, that's got to be one of the best nicknames in sports right now, not just college sports. I mean, UConn basketball, they've got, I think we touched on this the last pod or two, but they've got Dan Hurley has created that culture there the last few seasons. They have already, in my opinion, they've already, just by getting to this national championship after winning it last year, they've already put themselves in that running as being a Duke and a North Carolina the next, I don't know how many years. They're going to be good. They know what they're doing over there. And to go from winning it last year to being as good as they were this year, and then every single game in this tournament, they have just been whooping teams. I mean, Purdue, all I'm going to say is good luck. I mean, if you want any indication of which way I'm leaning or which way I think it's going to go, that's where I'm going. I don't see how UConn is going to get stopped. But very interesting with the men's side. I heard someone talk about this earlier, or might have been last night. I think it was Jay Williams, actually. You had these two programs that kind of built their teams from that big man with Edie and Klingon. And then you've got all these guys on the outside who can make their shots and kind of fill in that team. Very interesting, though, that you had on both sides, kind of the best teams, especially for the men's side, kind of coming together. And then we mentioned Stokey Cardoso on the women's side, but Edie and Kling Kong, are you kidding me?
Yeah, we're in for a real treat tomorrow too. So really good basketball we're gonna be watching. Um, we didn't mention it either, but it's been both one seeds too, on the women's side and on the men's. For the men's side, this is only the eighth time since 1994 that number one seeds have faced off in the national championship. In recent memory, in 2021, it was Gonzaga versus Baylor. 2017, North Carolina versus Gonzaga. Carolina won. Duke versus Wisconsin in 2015. If you remember, Jaleel Okafor, I think it was. If you remember, he played for the Bulls for like a short cup of coffee. Kansas versus Memphis, 2008. Derrick Rose and
Oh,
Chalmers. If you remember that, the Chalmers shot.
D Rose.
Florida versus OSU in 2007. I think Greg Oden might have been there for that one. I think. Don't quote me. I think it was.
You said Florida. Was that the Joakim Noah year?
It was. It was the back to
Yeah,
back. So that'll touch into my next point in a
there
little
you go.
bit. In '05, UNC versus Illinois when Carolina won another national championship. And then UConn versus Duke in 1999. Uh, that being said, UConn's going to try to like be the first team since 2006, 2007, that Florida Gators team to win back-to-back national championships. It just doesn't happen in college basketball because there's so much uncertainty on just players and, who's staying, who's going, uh, you know, and anybody can win in college basketball. We've seen it enough times. Uh, you know, just it would cement, like you said, UConn being on that level of a program uh, with Carolina and Duke and Kansas and enough of those squads to kind of be one of those top tier programs. And I think Dan Hurley has done an amazing job. I remember when was it Buffalo he was with, or was that Nate Oates? Either way, he led one of his previous team to the college tournament multiple times. They just never won. Going to UConn, you have those expectations. If you don't win, you're gone. And he took it with open arms, and they are going to be a tough team to beat for years to come. But that being said, I'm kind of hoping Purdue wins just so like we can not have another back to back. Zach Edey's a walking double double. The key for the Boilermakers to win will be them making their 3-point shots and kind of just keeping the defense grounded. They did hold NC State to 28.8% despite 16 turnovers, which has been the most in the tournament. I think NC State just ran out of gas, unfortunately, which is fine for me. I'm rooting against them anyway, but uh, they need to just continue to get hot from three-pointer for 3-point range and, limit the turnovers. They could beat UConn. Do I think it's going to happen? Small percentage, because they want the history. Purdue wants to be like what Virginia did, where they got bounced by a 16 seed a couple of years ago, came back the next season, won a national championship. So
Yeah, and I think for Purdue, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they said this is the second time that they've even been in the championship, and I don't think they've ever won. So
yeah, I'd have to look that up to see if they have one. I know if they have, it's been a long time that they've ever won. But that being said, Bama really put a lot of pressure on UConn yesterday.
yeah, I'm glad you just brought up Nate Oates because I also believe with what I just said with UConn. I mean, Bama hasn't gotten to a championship, but the last 2 years, I think they were Elite Eight last year and then Final Four this year.
Yep.
So Nate Oates is a guy who has really figured something out with that program over there in Alabama, and they're a team that looks like, they had I think that Brandon Miller last year. He just
They
went
did.
into the league this year. They had other good players, and then obviously this year they had a great offense this year. So looking like Alabama could be a team now for
Yeah.
some years to come, depending obviously on
If he
who they
stays there.
get. But if he stays there though, I mean, it looks like he's figured something out over there.
Yeah, the transfer portal has done been really generous to them, to say the least. They've gotten quite a few top talented players out of there from smaller schools. To answer your question, the last time Purdue won a national championship in basketball was 1932.
Oh, so just a few years ago.
Yeah, just a cup of coffee ago.
Geez, I feel like a Cubs fan all over again. That's almost 100 years.
Well, it's gonna be another 100 before you guys win again. So
There we go. Well, we knew that was coming.
can't leave. You can't give me that alley oop for it.
So 1932, they didn't have the tournament back then, did they?
I don't think so. I think the
They
way that it was
probably,
implemented, it was
yeah, it
different.
had to be way different almost 100 years ago. But
Yeah.
yeah, so you could essentially say they almost haven't won, at least in an
Yeah.
NCAA tournament era,
Oh,
but
just
sure.
yeah. Yeah, I mean that's like all those like Bears and Packers titles that they won in the Super Bowl era or before the Super Bowl era. They
Yeah,
were what I mean, how many teams were in the league?
right. But I wouldn't mind if Purdue won. I like Matt Painter. I like Edie. I like some of the other kids on that team. But yeah, I mean, it just seems like that UConn train has just been on a mission. Not only from last year. I mean, they just looked great last year, and I didn't believe in the team last year. UConn last year, I think, was a 4 seed, if I'm not mistaken, in the tournament. Still very good.
They were, and I want put my own input on it. I think I picked them to go to the Final Four. I just didn't pick them to win because I picked no, Carolina didn't even make the tournament. I forgot who I picked last year. Whoever like the one overall seed was. Um, I'd picked them to win it, but I wanted UConn to win because I knew that where they were seated and just the quality of team that they got hot at the right time last year. And they are a much better team. So I got your pick for UConn over Purdue. I locked that in. Who do you have? Do you have Iowa or do you have uh, South Carolina?
I have to go Iowa with this one. It
Yeah,
it
I'm going Iowa too. But I'll take Purdue. I'll take Purdue over UConn, even though I don't think it's going to happen. But I will. That'll be my locked in pick right now. But yeah, I am taking Iowa plus 6.5 too.
was going to say those are probably both the underdogs then, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't hate the picks. I don't hate the picks. I think we're in store for a couple of really good games though, which is always what you want to see. So
Yep. That being said, any closing words, arguments, anything you want to bring up?
good week in sports. Let's hope the Cubs keep going. Let's hope Imanagi can get us a win today. And yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, at least you have a lot more optimism than I do about my team. So we'll leave it at that and close us out.
Hey, I'm just the Cuzzo, and I think you're gonna like us.